Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.2.2, in which I am attempting to make Kerbals a multiplanetary species. In this case, by doing recklessly irresponsible landing trajectories. So what I have here is my Minty agricultural module that is coming down in, as I said, a wildly irresponsible sort of trajectory, where I think I just kind of came into the orbit and then I literally just reversed my orbit and then started falling straight down from some several hundred kilometers. It's like 170 kilometer apoapsis from the moment I started talking about that, but that should be fine. This thing is packed with just a tremendous amount of extra fuel, and we will be not really using all of that anyways, so that's not a big deal. So here we are coming down. This thing's a little bit unwieldy, but it's, what it is completely unbalanced. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so this is basically the same as every 3.75 meter design that I've ever put together, where it's got the big honey badger stages and the honey badger control modules and all that. I rely pretty heavily on the honey badger stuff to land these things, because Rover Dude has given them a fairly ridiculously high specific impulse for the VTOL engines, and they're big and heavy and high thrust, so what's not to like, really? Oh, and there we just spent some time entering that physics bubble. You could tell because it took forever. Things are running dramatically better since my reinstall, but there's still a little bit of stuff that goes on when I enter into the sphere of influence of Minty Station. I'm going to be doing my best to kind of reduce the part count as much as I can. For example, as soon as we kind of finish up here, I have plans to remove that whole refueling apparatus we have down there and replace that at a new a new ground station that I'm planning on having up on the flats, I think. What I would like to do is build one more big base. So there's a couple things that I need Minty Station to be able to do, and then there's pretty much everything else is going to be going into one other big base, which I am calling the Minmus Shipyard, and that's going to do most of my fabrication, creation of material kits, specialized parts, and everything else, and that's going to be a pretty big and hefty station. But that's going to bring us down to two major bases that are actually going to be Kerbaled, and two or three, I think two total unmanned miners that I have to visit. Because after we found out that planetary logistics only is pushed to while you are focusing the vessel, that has made me want to kind of minimize the number of things that I have to bounce around, especially since I found that in this episode that I recorded here, that I crashed about 3 times over the course of recording just what I had, and I think that was a lot about the way that I was bouncing between vessels as much as I was, because I was going to the carbonite driller and I was coming back to Minty Station, and I was going to just kind of back and forth and bouncing over a million things down here, and it just was not working out very well. But yeah, so if I can avoid that as much as possible, I would like to. But for now, we are coming in to land the agricultural module. It's coming in pretty nicely. When you have all the extra fuel in the world, you can do all sorts of things. And boom, touchdown. All right. Can I wonder? Ooh. Oh, it just skates forward a little bit. I guess that's exactly what I wanted. There we go. Oh, so good. Okay. So the benefit of this is that I don't actually have to mess around with the doing any construction or using this thing or anything. It's just set up right now as it is. So let's complete that setup. Jeslyn! Alright, so Jeslyn, let's head over. Ooh. Still moving fairly quickly despite all the silliness. And this whole new thing that I've landed here. Minty Station, what is this? This is material kit, so I do want to keep that. Out, out. No! Are we, what is happening right now? Is it pushing out to, hold on a second. Hold on a darn second. I think I'm pushing out a whole bunch to planetary logistics right now. Oh my god, look at that. 16,000 gypsum, 14,000 fertilizer. Minty Station has 27 supplies. Okay, sure. Still not sure what's up with that. But I can push some stuff into the fuel tanker. Looks like I have a little bit of fuel that I can push in. We are actually getting very close to full on this, which is exciting. Right. Material kits. So what I think I can do is actually use some of these material kits instead of this thing being a pain in my butt. So let's try to... Yeah, those are painted correctly and I deploy them from inside, but these deploy. There we go. That should eat up some of these material kits. I wonder if that actually comes from, can come from planetary logistics at all. Deploy. Lovely. Deploy. Not perform maintenance, but that's fine. Doesn't hurt anything. And deploy. There we go. All those are deployed. That is wonderful. Ooh, bonk. Bonk. Oh no. Get out of there. No, Jeslyn. Moonwalk out of that thing. It's fine. This is fine. Bounce. Bounce. Okay. Minty Ag Base. I can deploy these also. Beautiful. Minty Station. Yep, there we go. Now I've used up all those material kits and so forth, so I can retract that. And what I would like to do at this point is save my game. Alright, and before we actually kick off these bits, I want to get this thing really nice and close, and I wonder if I can still skate. Oh, look at that, light's turning on. Rotate like this. This is very silly, but I'm going to take it, as this would otherwise be a colossal pain in my butt to do. So we are rotated about right, almost. There we go. Now if I can just up a little bit. Ooh. Bonk, bonkity bonk bonk. We are testing the structural integrity of these components. That is precisely what's happening. We are not fiddling about in a very weird and Kerbal way. No, that's absolutely what's happening. And this is working, mostly. So let's get a little a little bit closer. That's kind of the key thing, is I want to be a little closer to this. And like that. That will do. Let's save the game one more time. And decouple. Alright, Jeslyn. I have, and for good reason, stashed inside one of these modules. Oh my god, this whole thing is wiggling. Inside one of... I said inside one of these... There we go. I have stashed a screwdriver for the equipping, and 2 of these flexo tubes. Now then, I can disassemble some parts. Pop. 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 Material kits, hooray! Okay. Now we're going to do that one more time. Oh, other way. Pop. Pop. Please don't explode. Please don't explode. Woo. There we go. Beautiful. Loving it. Alright, so we are going to attach from the top, I think. I can never remember. It's F5. Hold on. Escape. F5. From the top. And I want the furthest out node that I can possibly get. Because that will form a narrowing, tapering bit that goes down, which will be good. So can I just grab this off and shove this in my bag? Nope. I already have a piece there. Well, what if I just put this right here? And then I put this right here. And then I grab this, and by the top I attach. Beautiful. And then link. Oh, the ILM is so heavy. And link. Ta-da! Awesome. Now I have a massive new agricultural complex, and Minty Station can finally do what it is intended to do, which is grow all of the food for the entirety of Minmus and for many of my ventures beyond. I just wanted to kind of go over very quickly where we're at with this, because we just added a huge amount of stuff. So let's see if we can get this activated, or if I have to send out a bunch of machinery or material kits or whatever. Because I did just do a big push of, oh my gosh, my carbonite is going out of control. Well, I'd rather have too much than too little, I suppose. Okay, we have some loose ends to tie up, and we are going to do so at 4 times speed, as I kind of just zip our way through the launch of 3 vessels that are going to help us tie up a bunch of loose ends. So this first thing that we have here is we're kicking off some big Space Y solid rocket boosters, and a big 3.75 meter core stage is pushing us towards orbit. And you'll notice it has parachutes on it, like most things I have these days, because that's really helping to defray the costs. But what this big thing is this is our the mineral strip miner. So it's got 2 absolutely massive drills on the side, and then container space for both exotic minerals and substrate. And this is something that I have. That's that location that's up on the ridge away from Minty Station that I point to every so often. Up there, I do believe, is where there are resources for exotic minerals and substrate, which we absolutely need to get going on the rest of our the rest of our base. The substrate especially, to get the farming bits moving, is 100% necessary. And there, see, we got a little bit of money back, and this is going to be a unmanned driller. Alright, and now we have our trajectory set up. I get that just tweaked just a little bit to get that in. And we whip around and send this thing off. This thing is about as unaerodynamic as it gets, so I didn't actually manage to... I didn't pack enough fuel, or I misjudged by a pretty large degree, because you see I run out of fuel here with 300 and some meters per second of delta V left to change, and then as I start to watch this thing burn, I'm realizing something is terribly, terribly wrong. My delta V counter in Kerbal Engineer is depleting dramatically faster than my velocity is actually being changed. So I think that is mostly to do with the way that these studs are canted off on an angle as opposed to straight down. Moving swiftly on to launch number 2, you'll see we have a nice big kind of 4 mainsail cluster of boosters here. They all pass their fuel inwards, and hopefully they will all be recovered as well. Like I said, that's kind of a fundamental cornerstone of my space program now, is reusing as much as I can and not doing it in a cool Scott Manley sort of way in which I'm actually like building space planes and shuttles that come back and land and do all these neat things. I just chuck boosters off and hope that parachutes can catch them, and if they can't, then oh well. It at least recycles a little bit of my funds that are used, as opposed to, nothing, which is what I was getting before. So anyways, this second launch is intended to tie up some loose ends with my with Minty Station. This is going to dig up hydrates. It's going to dig up metallic ore, which are the last 2 minerals that you can get, well, that I can get at my the biome that Minty Station is in. And it also has a bunch of machinery and some organics to get the farming process kick-started. So that's what this one is. It also contains some radiators, because I'm intending eventually to get rid of the carbonite driller, which I'm realizing is my only source of radiators. The only place I have thermal control happening is on the big ones off of that. So we will need a replacement for that coming up, and that is what this was intended to be. Alright, so we're whipping around into our Mooner injection burn. You can see it hanging out as a tiny pale dot right next to the moon, unless that was actually Joule. Joule has been lurking in a lot of my Joule has been lurking in a lot of my videos, just kind of like just beyond the senses. It's there, always there. I may send some stuff out to Joule. I'm not 100% sure. It's great science, and it's a lot of fun bouncing stuff around inside the all the different planetary bodies and gravity wells and gravity assists that you can get. It's a ton of fun playing around in Joule, but that may be beyond the scope of this video. But what's not out of scope is sending Bill Kerman out on the 3rd and final loose end that is being tied off. And this is me using some 1.25 meter engines and kind of checking the stats against the upgraded stats, because I'm never 100% sure that the parts overhaul that was abandoned by Porkjet when he left Squad, I've never really verified if those things actually work the way that I expect them to work, because there's like upgrades you can get in Tech Tree that give you better, they give you better thrust and better ISP and so forth, but it feels like it doesn't, like the engine doesn't seem to reflect it, so I'm not really sure where that's being calculated, and Kerbal Engineer definitely doesn't have it. Why is my screen so dark? What is happening right now? Hopefully I can get that fixed. Anyways, I have no idea what my video was doing, but apparently some of my video became corrupted, or I edited it weird, or something happened, and it was just kind of all grayed out. I don't know what that was about. But anyways, this is the reactor for the Starlifter shuttle, as well as some radiators and some construction docking ports that Bill here is going to hopefully be able to attach one of the docking ports to the bottom of the Starlifter shuttle and then dock this with the construction panel and then weld them. Not sure if that's actually a good idea, but I've got the pieces, so I might as well give it a try. Okay, I think we may have cause to rename this like Minmus space program, basically, but here we are entering the sphere of influence of Duna, my first craft to do so in this series. So this is very, very exciting. So we can see Duna and Ike in the background here. Jewel is sparkling in the distance. Kerbin is a long, long way away, but we have a direct signal to it. 97% using our big, these big hefty HG55 dishes give us plenty of reach so that we can make sure that we keep our signal so long as we do not occlude with the planet too much. So we're going to have to be careful as we get around, but this is going to act as our first communication satellite. It doesn't have any relays, which is an oversight on my part, but there are, I think there's, in the Descender, I think that has a relay on the transfer stage, maybe? I can't remember. I should send some more communication stuff out to Duna while I have the chance. But anyways, this has, more importantly, it has this survey scanner, and it has this narrowband scanner. So we're going to start taking a look at Duna so that we can get an idea of the locations of stuff and resources so that we can plan the execution of our base there. Because I think we're getting pretty close to being able to do what we need to do on Minmus. There's only a couple steps left until I have that base pretty much completed, and then we're going to start really ramping up our space program towards colonizing Duna. This has been in flight for quite a long time, so I think it's finally time to remove that node. And let's first see what our intercept looks like after all this time. All right, looks perfect. Oh, gosh, that's so good. Oh, I could not have asked for that to be any better than it is. Beautiful. Okay, so at the periapsis around Duna, let's go ahead and see what this is going to take. Ooh, this is gonna take a little bit of doing. Wow, that's gonna take way more doing than I thought it was going to, but that's actually fine. This is something that I planned for. As you recall, I took a faster, well, as you may or may not recall, it was many episodes ago, but I took a faster trajectory between Kerbin and Duna, and the price of that speed is needing to dump a humongous amount of fuel to enter, but I used to capture. I need to make sure I'm actually using the right words here. But I packed a atomic rocket motor so that I can do this without too much trouble. And we have plenty of liquid fuel, so we're going to be able to do this without any issues, I think. And then we will still actually have a little bit of maneuvering delta V left so that we can adjust our orbit, make it higher, lower, whatever we need to do. And from here, it looks like our angle to Kerbin, we are still going to be able to reach. Before I get there, do I have any science whatsoever? I don't think I do. I don't think I have any science on this vessel at all, actually. Oh, that little bounce. I think that was almost, not quite it. And encounter! We have our first vessel around Duna. We have initiated the first flyby. Very exciting. And that actually gets us part of our contract. One of the earlier contracts that we accepted quite some time ago. That we are finally getting working towards. Unfortunately, this doesn't have any science instruments, so it can't do, any data, and it's definitely not going to be returning. I think what I need to do is I need to actually plan that flags and footprints mission that I was talking about previously to really get this thing moving. To get this done and get a whole bunch of science and funds from the exploration and so forth. So let's deploy the scanners. Activate the scanners. Yes, we are too high, I understand. But we should be able to scan pretty soon. And we can toggle through this to kind of get an idea of the resources that we're looking at. Perform orbital survey. Can't do that because I need to actually be in orbit. Go figure. Okay, so in 4 hours and 9 minutes, we will be finishing up this burn. Okay, so I just decided to skip over the mid-course corrections. There's nothing interesting there. This, however, is interesting. Look at that. Look at Duna. It's so gorgeous. And Ike hovering in between us. Or actually on the far side, it just looks very big. It's very close compared to the moon, I think. But yes, I'm so stoked. So we have a 5-minute burn, so luckily for you, you guys get to see this with the magic of time warp. Alright, so during this long burn, I suppose it seems a little bit appropriate to talk for a minute about the actual NERVA, or nuclear thermal rocket engine, which uses a nuclear reactor, as you might imagine, and it passes the gases of the it passes the fuel over the engine, making it incredibly hot, and creating a fuel that has incredibly high specific impulse and thus very high efficiency. It's not something we've ever actually used in flight. I don't think anybody has, even the Soviets. But they were tested by both NASA and the Soviets back in the 60s and 70s. Apparently they were pretty successful, but my understanding is that they discontinued that due to the risks of, hauling big nuclear rockets up into space. Which is unfortunate because it's like in the real world, they are absolutely the way to go. I mean, I even find use for them in Kerbal Space Program, so maybe we'll see more of that in the future. And that is it. We are in orbit around Duna for the first time. How awesome is that? And with plenty of fuel left over, just like I thought. That's the wonderful power of nuclear engines. Ah, so cool. So now let's begin by performing our orbital survey. We are transmitting data back to Kerbin. 50 science on the orbital survey data for Duna. So now we know about their resource allocation. So let's take a look and see just very generally what that is going to be like, because we can look with our narrowband scanner to kind of get an idea. So let's see. Well, we're going to want a higher refresh. Beautiful. Well, we're looking right down at the poles right now, I think, so I'm not going to see too much exciting here, but let's see. Dirt. Exotic minerals. Gypsum. Hydrates. Looks like so we can use hydrates, and there's actually a pretty large amount here. So I guess that represents like the polar ice and the carbon ice that Duna has at high latitudes. The high percentage of hydrates, because as I understand it, Rover Dude's mod considers hydrates, quote unquote, as any mineral that is rich in water or can have water extracted, and that definitely qualifies, I think. Plenty of carbonite. Well, not plenty, actually, kind of a smallish amount. 5% though, that's better than we were seeing on Minmus. No carborundum, that's fine. that only comes from very specific places that I may need to look into later. Metallic ore, yes. Minerals up here. Not much in the way of minerals. Monazite, I'm still not sure what this is for. But there's plenty of it, I guess. Rare metals, plenty of rare metals. They're not so rare here. Well, 4%, but a huge amount of 4%. Let's see. Oops, skipped over substrate. That's fine. Substrate. 4%. That's not so bad. We can get dirt here too, so... Ooh, plenty of uraninite. There's actually straight up water. My gosh. We have found water on Duna! From orbit, somehow. Or, not that we're too concerned about that. Silicates, what we'll need. Alumina, this is another thing I'm not actually sure what it's used for. It's not used for anything in the MKS suite of reaction chains as far as I know. And we're back to dirt. Beautiful. Alright, so now we can use this to formulate a plan in the future for how we're going to approach this. The next step is going to be sending a whole bunch of landers to do some ground truthing, and yeah, lots more hardware is going to need to come out to Duna to actually see how we're going to accomplish this. But that is all the time I have for this episode. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to leave me a like and subscribe down below. And I will see you in the next episode.